Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the advent of the independent foray we're going to do. ICW New York. They have made a recent comeback, and all of these are highlighted through the ICW or the Independent Wrestling TV subscription, $10 a month for over 7,000 hours or 7,000 shows, 7,000 hours, maybe both, of independent wrestling content, nearly 275 promotions. Just randomly picked a promotion to start with, and we're going to do all 40 some shows that they have available through the service bit by bit. I needed something that made me actually enjoy wrestling because most of the national product, unless it's old school, just drives me nuts. There'll be stuff on the independent stuff that drives me nuts too, but it's going to be much less than, because there's excuses for that bad booking, independent promoters, and that they're synonymous. But anyway, the ICW promotion has had a couple of incarnations, one in the early 2000s, one in 2010 or so, and one now. We're going to start at the beginning of what's available on Independent Wrestling TV and go forward from there. We open in, and this is a promotion that runs out of New York, primarily in the Queens Elks Lodge. Xavier, who has recently passed away within the last year, and Low Ki are feuding over it. They keep referring to it as the UCW, or Ultimate Championship Wrestling Championship, which ends up being the ICW Championship. I guess they're changing the name of the company or trying to expand or something. Opened with a promo, which annoys the heck out of me simply because at the end of the day, promos for independent shows to open just reminds me of goofiness. Also, I'm watching this as a first-time viewer, and so there are things that are not covered as a storyline viewer of this project that just drive me nuts. Anyway, so Low Ki, who apparently was supposed to challenge Xavier for the UCW, I guess what's later called ICW Championship, along with promoter Jack Sabbath, are in the ring. Low Ki says the match that he was promised is not going to happen. And then they basically go heads up. The promoter Jack Sabbath basically says that Low Ki has to beat Tajiri in order to get a future title shot. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And starting with heat of that nature in this in an independent show, to me, I'd go with just matches to start me. But G-Don, Sledge, and Ecstasy, or something like that. I believe they call themselves the G Mafia or something like that. Bobby G, actually, not G-Don, but basically, guy doing the sunglasses and thuggish wannabe Goomba gimmick. And the Ecstasy is a lady who is a blonde young lady who's doing the heel bit, and she's insulting him. Sledge, independent guy who seems to get his run here, but is kind of there. Sledge, though, is in the opening match here. I mean, he looks like your typical independent wrestler, t-shirt, and maybe even some wrestling boots, but it's there, and I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you expect this from independents. On the other, get some gear, camo pants, and a t-shirt. Not exactly going to inspire great wonder. The manager, the Bobby G, does some heel talking work after a 15 plus minute talking segment. I'm not sure they necessarily need it. Also, there is a Northeastern title tournament that's here. This actually doesn't. It's not the either they've done the matches out of sync, or it's just a talking segment. Kind of confusing because again they have this Sledge character on many shows, but where he comes from, why he's here, the announcers do a really poor job. Speaking of which, the announcers literally drive me nuts. Adult language allowed here, and F-bombs left and right, not exactly something you want your fans to see. But they're running an old ECW haunt, so that's there. Jack Sabbath, the promoter, is wearing jeans and an ICW T-shirt. Real intelligent there. I don't know. Promoters to me should wear suits and look like businessmen, especially if you don't know that you don't have fans who could become sponsors. Just look the part. But anyway, the young lady Ecstasy basically propositions the promoter and then hits him with a low groin shot. Um, Oddly enough, they later align in future shows. Sloppy storytelling in general, but it is what it is. And the lady hitting her groin shot is the whole point of the promo. 15 minutes into the program, if I'm a new viewer, I'm probably wanting to run away because, well, to be completely honest, if I want this on my wrestling, I'll just watch a national promotion. Then we see a promo of a guy with with a non-named championship belt. But before we get there, um, you know, Xavier does a promo. Kira, Miss Kira, along with Divine, she's basically flirting, doing the cheerleader type gimmick that modern day Julia Hart would be doing on AEW. But I mean that's there. Again, 15 minutes into a 2.5 hour show, and we haven't really seen any wrestling. Chris Divine is a mainstay in the NYWC / Mikey Whipwreck camp of things, hence he's on this show. Actually, going to enjoy getting to just the matches here. This is a first round match in the I guess the championship run that they're doing, the Northeast title tournament. They have like 12 or 13 matches on this show, which is impressive to put into 2 hours and 40 minutes on one hand. On the other hand, do you really need that many matches? On the other hand, when you have ECW talent at the time, could you have given them more and maybe some of the independent guys a little bit less? In so much as the need for that level is there. Red and Divine opening the show is a decent run. Red actually does some basic takedowns, floatovers, and the like. Red, of course, not exactly having the best of gear, wearing again a t-shirt and some jeans and maybe regular shoes. Anyway, takedowns, Divine having the power advantage because Red is probably about the size of Marco's Stunt, much more talented, by the way. Red does a good bit of floatovers. Beautiful drop kick by Divine. One of the criticisms of Divine at the time is that he didn't really have a lot of personality. Maybe bringing this Miss Kara girl out with him added to the character a little bit. Not really sure. Red does, they do the Japanese square offs with like the hip toss, and then you see a Rana by Red. Much of the stuff seems very choreographed. Red goes to the top rope almost immediately after that and does a flip dive into the crowd. It's interesting, but at the same time, too much too soon. Opening match, you've wasted 15 minutes, and now you give people just spots. On the other hand, the athleticism is good, and for 2001, this isn't the only match of this nature. Sit-out style finish attempted by Chris Divine, and Divine managing to get the lady to come into the ring. She gets kicked off. Red's going to hit her, doesn't end up hitting the girl, and instead Divine super kicks his own manager, which leads to Red eventually getting a bit of an advantage. Referee, which I believe is Todd Sinclair, maybe, looks like him anyway, but anyway, Red hits an enziguri, and then a maybe 630 splash. I mean, literally did 2 rotations, so big move, and he advances to the next round of the championship tournament, much to the delight of the fans. The crowd was in for this. Then we go to the next match in the bunch of them. This is Prince Nana versus Joel Maximo, the Maximos, Jose and Joel, otherwise known as the SATs. Lots of talk of Prince Nana basically saying he's going to buy his way to victory, get his way to victory, whatever have you. He was certainly a good heel at the time, for the time, and a different character. Almost, I think they were doing the South African thing, much like they're doing with Apollo Crews now on WWE. And I mean, there's some power there by Nana. Nana most um, commonly known, I guess, at this point in his career for his managerial days in Ring of Honor. Um, Chops and the like, Nana having the size advantage over Maximo of the SATs, mainly because, well, the SATs were small for their stature. Clotheslines and such out of the corner from, um, you know, uh, from Nana. SAT member manages to get a reasonably quick victory where he can, slides over in a few short minutes, dives over to the top and all of that. Um, in comparison, looking back at it, it's not nearly as crazy as today's high spots stuff is, but still overdone. Flapjack by Nana, and I mean, he certainly looks like he should have won in this situation, especially having more of a heel babyface dynamic going forward into the tournament. Big mafia side style kick by Maximo trying to go up, and again things like not going for covers and that literally pulled the man up after a reasonably good looking kick, followed by a drop kick, and then goes for the cover. Go for the cover after the main impact move, not the most common of moves. Kryptonite Crunch style sit out muscle buster type move, and then a big, I guess, moonsault gets the victory for Maximo going forward. Then we see Judas Young in a short promo. He says Rock's not dead or Punk's not dead. Judas Young actually is a guy that, looking back at it, and I remember him from watching Independence at the time, coming up from the New England area, we kind of did watch what was going on in Jersey and the like, but, it's there. Kid Cruel is out next. Kid Cruel, I believe, is Mike Cruel. I'm pretty sure. He has a match upcoming in I believe, the next month of this particular promotion that's really, really good. He had a good body on him, but just charisma-wise, never really caught on with the crowd. Spends a long time jawing with the crowd and all of that. Goes to the next run of it, and yeah, Judas Young and Kid Cruel, they actually have a pretty decent match. Young doing kind of a Punk gimmick, almost like the Shannon Moore would do in TNA, only he looks a little slimmer. Cruel actually cared enough to have actual gear, although in this case I wouldn't expect Young to have gear with the Punk gimmick. It makes sense for him not to. Goes to work on the arm pretty easily, pretty early on, and stays with it a little bit. And I'm going to grab my phone, so we'll be right back to continue more of this. And again, from a psychology standpoint, this is probably one of the better matches on the show, in the sense of, Cruel is selling properly for his opponent, and also they're putting forth, at least to this point, the best psychology on the show. Staying on an armbar for a couple of minutes. Judas Young comes when his opponent comes back up. They are building to moves that make, let's say, higher risk sense, in the sense of, yes, there's high risk stuff, but it's not just there for the sake of being there. Actually worth going out of your way to see this particular match from the standpoint of, if you haven't seen either guy before, showing an independent style that is higher risk but not needless risk, which there is a big difference too. Cruel hitting the Rana from the top rope is kind of, exciting, amazing at the time. He does a bit of his posing, prancing, and all of that. Referee gets thrown out of the way when Cruel's kind of tired of playing by the rules, disqualification, and obviously he does not advance in the tournament because of the disqualification, as it were. Not necessarily sure why the guy couldn't take a direct loss, but it is what it is. Next up, we see more of the hype for the Sledge character that I thought was a match before, but it's kind of there. Sledge versus El Gringo, not exactly a match to write home about. Sledge is as you'd say, a typical independent guy. The just basic rock star shirt and pants that are kind of weird. Top rope elbow drop, really quick match. El Gringo is a masked guy in some knee pads and boots and a mask. Top rope Randy Savage elbow. Good move by Sledge, but not exactly a quality match. Although maybe being a heel, maybe that was the plan all along. Is kind of the cheating and the complaining and all of that. Then we go to an evening gown sort of match. Or evening gown press. Big Dick Dudley is there, seconding Elektra. Then and kind of I guess calling this out and all of that. Missy Hyatt is her competition. Athletic Commission member basically says he's going to do a female body exam here in Queens, New York. Doing the old Bill Alfonso shtick takes a little bit long and obviously not exactly a clean bit there. And then, kind of coming out to that, the commissioner is being inappropriate. They get knocked. He gets hit in the groin. The ladies end up double suplexing the manager and pantsing him, showing his backside and riding him around, dominating him, and all of that. Comedy segment for the sake of adult entertainment sort of things with the ladies kind of showing bits and pieces of themselves that they probably wouldn't under normal circumstances. Then we go to the next round of the tournament with Sledge and Judas Young here. Of course, they both advanced past their first round matches, semifinal match though it were. And, I mean, this is actually pretty good for the standards at which they are wrestling. Sledge actually allowed to show more talent than he's allowed to show in the early stages. Punk's Not Dead actually gets a sign at ringside from the fans. The Judas Young, obviously over with the crowd in a babyface manner, makes his way out and going to advance. Obviously, one of these two is going to advance to the finals later in the night. Sidewalk slam style maneuver by Sledge. Sledge, doing some posing, and Bobby G on the outside calling all of his spots, as it were. Lazy kick out by Judas Young, who maybe I guess they wanted to play the fact that he'd been, dominated or whatever pretty aggressively. Liger bomb there by Sledge. Sledge gets the victory off the Liger bomb. A little bit more back and forth than noted here, but Sledge obviously intended to be the main focal point of this particular contest. Then we go to the next in the semifinals, Red and Joel Maximo in the second of the semifinals. Obviously, these two being cousins and wrestling all over the country at this point, are going to give you a high spots match, and they certainly do. Point one, or a major point, is when Maximo hits a drop kick into Red's midsection, and then hits kind of the brainbuster slash suplex there. Goes for the cover pretty aggressively into, even though it's his cousin. Several back and forth near falls, both guys kind of inside out. If you like the high spot X Division style, you'll enjoy this. If that's not your thing, probably this is worth skipping. Red does a tope con hilo over the top rope and basically just about power bombs himself on the floor, getting caught. Red and his SAT cousin mate and combatant here. Actually, Jose also does a dive over the top rope. Jose manages to roll his cousin back in pretty assertively, as it were, and then we kind of see them go back and forth a little bit more. Lots of high spots. Crowd is pretty, I wouldn't say sold out, but they're doing pretty well at this point. Then we see a bit of a heel turn by Maximo against Red, which is odd in a way. Red gets the victory in this particular deal. Sledge moving on to his main event, or I wouldn't say main event deal, but again, Sledge making his way out and aligning with Maximo, at least for the moment, kind of there, and but the actual finish is a Rana from Red, or actually a spin kick, and then the kind of infrared 450, 630 splash thing he does. If you like this style of match, and he actually hits the shooting star press too, but if you like this style of match, it's enjoyable enough. Distraction from the girl Ecstasy from the heel group, and obviously that's where they show that Jose has aligned with them, I guess. Anyway, kind of moving that forward. Talk from the USA Pro Tag Team Champions about wanting to take over there. Talk about fighting multiple teams. Coming up here, Red being laid out and things being unfair. Kind of confusing for a non-viewer as to why Jose would turn on his own cousin. The promo in the back with the tag teams is just very lackluster. They're trying to be ECW-esque, but it doesn't really work. Another team that remains nameless unless you're a regular viewer of the program, cuts another promo and they threaten to be violent with each other. We learn that the next matchup, in fact, is a double tables Boogie Nights, Danny Drake and Mike Tobin versus the Hit Squad, Mafia and Monster Mac versus the Natural Born Killers, Boogaloo and Damian Dragon. Announcers do not do a good job of putting over who these guys are. Match is an ECW style brawl, which is pretty short. Monster Mac and Mafia are the Hit Squad. They were big in the indies at the time. Big 300 plus pound guys who basically are trying to be, well, a Hit Squad. Lots of stiff lariats from them, brawling on the outside. Like an ECW style match, about 90 minutes into the show, and it just, I don't know, it strikes as moves for the sake of moves, and also strikes as chaos for the sake of chaos, especially when you have actual ECW guys who do it much better on the show later in the show. Punches on the outside are there. Damian Dragon hits a top rope leg drop that's good, but meanwhile the ringside cameras, because they're just doing handhelds because they don't have a professional camera crew, are struggling to keep up with everybody, and the camera edit cuts are just abysmally bad. Two guys go flying over the top rope unnecessarily in an awkward landing. One guy hits a senton off the apron, and the thing is the announcers, which for the record, Joel Gertner comes into the next show, which I am covering and should be uploaded today. he's much better at the second half of that show. But I mean, these announcers are abysmal. At one point, a seated chair, not a folding chair, but a seated chair, is brought in. Again, double tables match. The hit squad supposed to be put over in this sort of situation, one would assume. Everybody's running around grabbing tables and making it look like chaos. Guy flies out of over the top rope with a dive, but it's not even caught properly by the camera people. No fault of their own. Just guys are doing too much and too quick. One of the Boogie Knights, I believe, ends up headed to try to put one of the hit squad through a table. Actually puts himself through the table and winds up in the metal meshing of the table and is in a completely dangerous place in that whole ordeal. Needless to say, Monster Mac and Mafia end up kind of being more I guess, the ring generals of that bunch. But again, lots of almost a backyard feel to this particular match, which is sad because the show, although it had its I wouldn't even say deterrence, but things that were less than desirable to this point, actually is an enjoyable show. Dragon suplex by one of the Hit Squad members on a guy wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and then we see a big, kind of suplex through. And the reason I'm being this flippant about it is if your announcers aren't putting over the talent completely, if they're not telling the backstory of why these individual talents should matter, then what's the point? One of the non-hit squad members hits a nice looking senton, but doesn't end the match because it's only through the tables that the match is going to end. Double stack up there by the hit squad, trying to get two of their opponents through, and a power bomb from the apron through a table on the floor ends the match. Hit squad victorious, and well, hey, there we go. If you like the chaos, if you like the ECW style done with independent guys, maybe this is for you, but certainly not worth kind of going through. Jose Maximo comes out and faces off against Sledge along for the Northeastern title. That match, kind of goes around. Maximo, obviously now the babyface, although turning on Red a little bit earlier, or at least feigning to, kind of getting the attention. Satellite head scissors. Sledge does a pretty good job of, I guess they made this more of I guess you'd say a brawl or whatever. As the referee goes down, second ref bump in probably 3 or 4 matches. Attempted armbar and basic stuff. Ecstasy, the girl on the outside, is trying to cheer on her man, Sledge. I assume, just from the way they interact, that they're dating. Big, Red comes in and we see the ref go down. We see Red come back in and try to help his cousin. I don't know why, with the attempted turn earlier in the show, that exists, but the referee had been knocked down at a point, and ultimately Maximo gets the victory there. Lots of brawling from Cruel and the other heels, taking out Maximo, and lots of chaos. Everyone's at odds with each other. And this is just a smudge for the sake of a smudge, especially when you still have, 30, 40 minutes of a show to go. Smudge for the sake of a smudge is kind of weird. El Gringo is up in the announce booth with Big Dick Dudley, which doesn't make a lot of sense either. I mean, it's a very disjointed production outside of the in-ring wrestling. A lot of it is good, but you can see the difference between, the pros that come in from ECW and other places. Speaking of pros that come in from ECW, Tajiri and Low Ki up next. Low Ki again has to get by Tajiri to get a championship match going forward. Nice strike battle. Both guys look strong here. Tajiri, obviously, for those that are fans of ECW, taking kicks and strikes from Low Ki, pretty big deal. Low Ki looks incredibly strong throughout. Strong strikes from Tajiri, goes back and forth. Tajiri hits spinning leg round kicks and other kicks, cannot get a victory over Low Ki quite off the bat. Low Ki manages to fight back and kind of staying with the fighting spirit. Tajiri keeps Low Ki down for the next couple of minutes, using kicks wherever he can. Tajiri does the double bicep pose, even a brutal brainbuster, which does not look fun to take if you're Low Ki, and that is the end of the match. I mean, generally speaking, this is a good match worth going out of your way to see. Shorter than I expected it to be, but maybe the show at this point is running long. Then we've got a layout of the champion, Xavier, who Mikey Whipwreck and Little Guido are scheduled to do a match with each other, I guess, apparently at this point. They immediately go after Xavier and basically double team him, get him out of the way. Needless to say, this is kind of, it's there. Certainly, the show at this point has taken on a frenetic, kind of chaotic pacing. Mikey and Little Guido, obviously not a former tag team, but they've kind of been at it with each other. Clothesline by Whipwreck. Whipwreck tries to stay on his adversary here, kind of spins him around, tries to get. He actually does a very interesting kind of hot shot over the guardrail on the outside. Whipwreck hits the whippersnapper a couple minutes later on Guido, manages to pin him in the middle of the ring. Referee had taken yet another bump. This is the only referee on the show, by the way. So I don't know why you would have the money to bring in a whole bunch of talent, but one referee. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. Low Ki basically goes in and runs in on everybody here. Sledge and everybody returns to take out Low Ki. Low Ki wants to get at Xavier because he's been promised a championship match that never happened. Then Low Ki and Xavier run their adversaries of Cruel and everybody else off. Low Ki basically insinuates he wants a match in the future there. Then we go, and all of this, now keep in mind, all of this happens in the next, 20 or so minutes, so that they're cutting the show short here or something. But anyhow, Balls Mahoney's out next. Balls Mahoney has a semi-match with the Baldies. Chris Candido is his tag team partner. However, Candido randomly turns on Balls Mahoney. That is never really explained in so much as it's kind of here but not here. That turns into basically Balls Mahoney has about a 5-minute brawl around the ring. Candido comes in and then ends up facing off against Kid Cash a couple of minutes later, but that's only after turning on Balls Mahoney. The ECW vibe of trying to get everyone into things is pretty much there. Mahoney gets double crossed by his tag team partner, who then goes into a match with Kid Cash, mainly because the match with Mahoney and the Baldies had gone maybe 3 minutes. So maybe Balls showed up early or late, and they didn't know what to do with him. I don't know. Kid Cash and Candido give a short enough match where it's enjoyable. Cash manages to hit arm drags, hip tosses, and the like. Candido bumping all over the place for Kid Cash. Cash, fresh off the ECW run just a few months before, certainly there. Meanwhile, the heel promoter comes in and stomps down the referee. hanging suplex by Candido, manages there, and referee gets beat up. Heel promoter comes in and fast counts Kid Cash, which is a waste of him because that match is less than 5 minutes in and of itself. So you brought in all these ECW talents, and then you really don't have much going on with it. Meanwhile, Kid Cash gets beat up by the Hit Squad because the Hit Squad runs in to take care of the underhandedness of everything. Balls Mahoney comes back and he's beating on, the Baldies are there. Balls Mahoney's beating on everybody, including the referee, who is the evil promoter. Balls misses a couple super kicks on his adversary, and then tries to super kick his old friend Candido, and that match kind of is a cluster brawl afterwards. Mahoney hits the greetings from Nutley, New Jersey, or whatever his finish is called, and that's a crush there. Then we see kind of the match, sort of, that never finished, continue between Kid Cash and Chris Candido. I mean, honestly, I enjoyed the wrestling on this, but the storytelling, where they're trying to go for the crazy ECW deal, is just goofy. Balls Mahoney takes the unconscious referee, evil promoter's hand, and counts the 3 count so that technically Kid Cash can win the match. Candido is, by the way, forgot to mention along the way here because it's just so convoluted. Sunny's in the crowd the whole time. She's in sweatpants and a t-shirt and a ball cap. She comes out and basically celebrates the win with Candido. Then we go to the supposed main event. The promoter is out with whomever, as for Xavier, who is complaining about his championship being stolen. Overall, Mikey Whipwreck comes back because he just won the 3-way earlier in the night. Whipwreck comes back and there's about I don't even know, maybe 5 minutes left on the show, or with the allotted time of the show, or whatever. Whipwreck comes back and gets done wrong here, but ends up hitting a whippersnapper and winning going forward there. And then we get a couple of hype promos to close the show about the chaos. Xavier saying he's the rightful champion, etc., and so forth. After actually not winning, getting laid out by the promoter. And again, all of this is so hard to kind of keep things going with. Jack Sabbath basically saying this is his house and he's going to build it, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's the end of the show. 2.5-hour show, 35-minute review. My takeaway is there's a couple good matches in here, but the booking is chaos and abysmal at times. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this.